virtual these days. I mean, I've been kind of interacting with Tristan for a few years. Never actually met him until last night when he came and checked into the hotel, but I feel like I know him just because I've been following his stuff. He's been following my stuff. We message each other, we text, we call. And you know, when I was looking at the theme of this event, how to cash flow in 2023, exposing people to different areas, we wanted to bring people down here that really knew their stuff. And instantly when I thought of the North, Tristan came to mind right away. He's been able to help a lot of students in our program here and still has capacity to help more people too, right? So great guy, avid athlete, devout father, and they've got another child on the way, so congratulations. I'm not mistaken. So it's family first, business second, and I like those values here as well. So I won't steal Tristan's thunder here. He's got a great presentation because I want everybody after today to be able to explain to their friends and family why it makes sense to invest in Sudbury. Okay, I know the play in Sudbury. I've got a lot of family. Both my parents grew up, born, raised in Sudbury. They just came down to Sarnia because there was similar opportunity, just they didn't have to work in the mines. Okay, so thank you so much, Tristan, for making the trip down here. He came all the way down from Sudbury, made a weekend of it. And let's save the Q&A for the end, but let's give him a round of applause and start.
Can everyone hear me pretty good? Okay, awesome. So I want to start by thanking Kory for having me. Having a community like this is awesome. Everyone's so encouraging and willing to help each other out. And a lot of people here are invested in Sudbury, so I've talked to a lot of you before. So with a show of hands, like, does anyone at least know where Sudbury is? We're about 4 hours north, so I'll get into that a little bit later. But the importance of being here too with Kory's group is when I'm talking to investors on the phone, a lot of people want to invest in Sudbury or call me to get a little bit of information. When I know they're with Kory's group, I know that they're action takers. I know that they're going to act quick. When a deal comes up, especially when there's very little deals out there like there is right now, someone that's willing to act quick is very important because then you can get those deals when they do come up. So I want to thank Kory for doing a great job coaching, and a lot of his students are quite successful. So I'm Tristan. Just a quick little overview. I'm an investor-focused realtor in Sudbury. I own 9 rental properties, bought and sold, flipped 15 over the years, been a realtor for just over 7 years, and investing for 9. I also love learning from a lot of my clients, some of you that are here, and just people and YouTube and podcasts. So I'm constantly just trying to understand more about the market, economics, and all that. I have my Instagram where as soon as I learn something about Sudbury or something crazy happens in the market, I post it to my Instagram and I try to explain the reasoning behind it. So I'm trying to be always open, transparent. So if you want to follow me there, that'd be awesome. And then I just started making YouTube videos on questions that I get a ton of, so that if people are looking to research Sudbury, you can go there, you can get a whole list on the playlist and find out some information, including one video I'll go over a little bit later. So 1.8 billion years ago, a crater hit the world, and this is what Sudbury is in. So that's why we have so many lakes. We have 330 lakes in our city borders, so a lot of lakefront properties. But it's because of the crater, right? So it's like a hole, so it accumulates water. And our population is 170,000. So that's been slightly increasing over the years. I'm pretty bullish on Sudbury for a few of the reasons that I'll mention a little bit later. And we are the largest city in the north. So yeah, we might be smaller than what you guys are used to, a little bit less nice restaurants, but we are the largest city in the north, and there's a few reasons for that as well. So we're located right up there, 4 hours north drive from Toronto, unless you get in a snowstorm like we did yesterday coming up. Stuck in Barrie for about an hour and a half. It was pretty wild, stop traffic. And I'll go over the area. So if you're thinking of investing in Sudbury, Kory said it earlier, location, 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 right? So you want to know what the best areas are, our suburbs, and what the worst areas are. So I'll go through those quickly right now. So we have the suburbs, the outskirts a little bit. So there's these 3 main ones, and then there's Lively down here, which we didn't highlight because you can't see all of it. In Sudbury, it's almost more desirable for some people to live out in the suburbs. So although they are suburbs, it's only like from downtown all the way up to the Valley Heights part, is 50-minute drive. So we don't really have traffic except for 30 minutes a day in Sudbury. So our suburbs aren't that bad to get to. What people like about them is you're closer to certain lakes, fishing, hunting, snowmobiling, quadding, which is huge in Sudbury. The other benefit of investing in those areas is the price is a tad lower, although it's been increasing quite a bit in the last little bit, especially the valley part. It was our highest increasing area in 2021. But those areas, people need cars to live there, so they're used to making those payments. So when I have clients or friends that invest in those areas, you very rarely have clients that are defaulting or not paying because they're used to making those payments, car, a mortgage, and so you have a little bit less issues. Lively down there is a little bit more expensive. It's basically equal to our second most expensive area in town, just to show you how desirable living in some of the outskirts are. And those areas also don't really have a quote-unquote worst area. There's not really a lower income area in the outskirts. All of those would be in the city. So let's zoom in a little bit here. If we're talking on the phone or you're talking to anyone about Sudbury, these are the main areas that you're going to want to know. So the green one, which is the biggest area, you're probably talking about cash flow, you're probably not going to invest there. It's our most expensive area of town. It's called the South End. It's like the Louis Vuitton, the Gucci of Sudbury. It's more expensive, way more expensive, and not really for a reason other than it's all just newer, more expensive homes. So cash flow is basically non-existent there. The yellow part is our West End, and the red part is Middle Lake. I'm sure you've probably heard Middle Lake before. Middle Lake's actually just that tiny little lake here, but that's the whole area of Middle Lake. And those are B areas. Those are where you're going to get the most bang for your buck. So you can get good tenants in those areas if you have a good property, of course, right? You have a good product, you'll attract good tenants. And then there's also a good mix of B and A areas in those areas. There's still some that are more expensive homes. The middle, the orange, very hit and miss, but that's our downtown. It's not like most cities. That's actually a decent area to invest in. Again, according to each street specific, so be careful. The blue is New Sudbury, our second most expensive area of town. You can get some gems there once in a while, but the cash flow is closer to break even there. Sometimes you get lucky and find a nice gem property there. That would be ideal. And then the two other areas, which I'll zoom in a little bit, these are our worst areas of Sudbury, very important. So if you've ever talked to someone about Sudbury, you've probably heard Donovan and Flour Mill, which is our quote unquote our ghetto. So that's where you have the lowest income renters, and 85% of our landlord and tenant board disputes come from those two areas, the Donovan and Flour Mill. So you might be attracted by the price that's out there. You'll see a property, you're like, wow, this property is great cash flow. Well, it is if you don't have problems with your tenants, right? But one thing to keep in mind is the green and the orange. So I highlighted those because Donovan's written right in the middle, but those are good pockets. So the green is considered, well, green and orange are both considered uptown. The green is a B area. When Sudbury, 40, 50 years ago, homes that were built there were like large executive homes. So you still get like, it's our Victorian style for Sudbury. They're large, you can tell they were really well made, and you can find some great tenants there. A lot of people, it's like the artsy community that likes to live there and will pay good rents. The orange part, believe it or not, is actually a plus area. So it overlooks the city, there's like 5 streets there only that are A plus, but again, very nice homes. People pay big dollars to be up there. It's kind of funny, and then this is our, right here, Kathleen Street. Anybody know what that is? Yeah. You want to say it? Oh yeah. Lady of the Night Street. Yeah. So, just if you're investing, you'll know that. Okay, so those are our worst areas. So what's Sudbury's economy based off all the way out in the north? So our main thing is mining, right? The big nickel. You've probably seen pictures of it. So Valley and Glencore, they hire a bunch of people. I got a next slide just to kind of give you an idea of what they do for our city. So there's about 12,000 people hired, including subcontractors, engineers, all these subsidiary companies. And then there's Health Science North, so that is our hospital. We're the hub of the north for our hospital. So in Sudbury, if there's a surgery we can't get, they ship us out to Toronto, like go see a specialist up there. We're that place for Timmins, North Bay, Kapuskasing, a lot of the smaller cities. So good, high-paying jobs there. Post-secondary institutions, so we have Laurentian University. We have 2 colleges, Boreal, which is a French university, and then Cambrian College. So again, lots of high-paying jobs there. The CRA, so we have one of the hubs in Sudbury. They have just over 3,000 jobs there, and they just hired another 200-300 people. And then we have your regular school boards, high schools and elementary schools. And obviously a lot more jobs, but those are the 5 main ones. So here's why I'm super bullish on Sudbury. I live there, I like it, I really enjoy it. It's a good middle between, we're the 28th biggest city in Canada. So we're small, but we're not super tiny. And I like the outdoors, so for me it's a perfect middle between being able to hang out in the outdoors and also do certain things in Sudbury. So here's why I'm bullish in terms of the economy, and it's mining in our future. So there's $4 billion in annual exports right now, 12,000 people employed. The battery demand for nickel is expected to jump to 1.5 million tons in 2030, so in about 7 years, from 400,000. So that's quadruple the amount of production for batteries, right? So everyone's talking about the Tesla contract. So we signed a Tesla contract to guarantee a certain amount of productivity. Although I don't have any details because they're not public, I wish I did, but they did say our production would go from 5% EV right now to 30 to 40% EV. So that's a pretty big jump. So that's where we haven't really seen the jobs increase yet because of it, but I'm thinking in the near future. There's 9 operating mines, 2 mills, 2 smelters, 1 refinery, and 3,000 mining supply firms. So like the engineers, Norcats out there, they do a ton of work basically just for Valley and Glencore. So in Sudbury, well, I think it's a good time to buy now, if you can find a deal. I'll talk about that later, and that's also my job. But so early 2022, at the peak, about 500,000 was our average house price. So in 2.5 years, it went from 285 to 500,000. Let's say a 2.5 interest rate, you're at 2150 monthly payments. Today, you're buying the exact same home for the exact same monthly payment. We're extremely close. So 2,200 a month, 5% interest, 380K home though. So it's dropped 120,000, and this seems to be the place where we're gonna be settling down, because now the action is starting to pick up a tad. People can afford homes, their down payments a little bit more. So we've seen a couple multiple offers here and there, but that's also because of the lack of inventory. So you're probably wondering this. I can send this PowerPoint to everyone after if you want to kind of have these as notes. So what are rents in Sudbury? You got the bachelors from $840 to $1,050. Rooms are renting roughly $600, $650 a room if you're looking to do student rentals. I owned one for quite a long time. With all our post-secondary institutions, it is a good way to cash flow if you want to have the yearly turnover, a little bit more work. One bed, $950 to $1,300. These higher ranges, keep in mind, those are likely the south end, nice big units. So if you go in the middle, that's about like your average if you're analyzing a property. 2 bed, $1,200, $1,900, and a 3+ bed is $18 to $24. Again, those vary a lot based on location, size, and quality of the units. And then I have this YouTube video that people always ask me what do things rent for, and I want to just show them instead. So I did a YouTube video. I toured a bunch of properties and I put the rents up and how many bedrooms they are, so you can kind of compare. If you're looking at a property, you can kind of compare what actual properties are renting for from property managers and some of my clients that have invested. That's another thing I like about Sudbury is our rents are actually quite good compared to our home prices. So average house price, like I just showed you guys, $380,000, and rents haven't come down yet, and the vacancy rate is extremely low. So CMHC had it at 1.5%. So I know a lot of people like to do conversions. In Sudbury, it's also quite popular because the brick bungalow is out there and available. So in 2016, the city of Sudbury passed the law, they needed more housing, which is, we're in a housing crisis, right? So in 2016, they made it so you can put a secondary unit in any zoning, or in R1 zoning. So a lot of people ask me, let me know when an R2 zoning or a duplex zoning property comes up. And then I just tell them, explain them this. In 2016, it changed, so now you can put it in R1. And you don't have to change the zoning, which is kind of tough. That used to be the difficult part of going from R1 to an R2, but now you just apply for a secondary unit application, and they made it a lot easier to go through that process so the average Joe can go through it. So in 2017, the first full year of it happening, there was 16 permits that were withdrawn. I was one of them, and I had drawn my secondary unit just on squared paper with a pencil, and they allowed it. It's gotten a little bit more strict since then, but so they want to make it for the average person, right? So to make it a little bit easier, so you can do that. So what zonings are you allowed for 2 units? Oh, sorry, I missed one part. In 2020, to permit up to 2 secondary dwelling units on the property. So that's going to be, in my opinion, very important when our house prices start to increase. Right now, adding that backyard garden suite isn't really worth it dollar-wise in Sudbury, just because it won't increase your value enough. But as the time goes on, the next 10 years, I see that becoming very popular. Zoning requirements for 2 units, R1, now you're allowed since 2016. R2 has always been allowed. C1 and C2 as well, you'll see a few of those. Those allowed up to 2 residential dwelling units. They're obviously commercial zone properties though, often. So here's an example. I wanted to pull this MLS sheet up because who that knows Sudbury a little bit has heard the term green doors? A little bit. So the city of Sudbury, starting 2.5 years ago, sold off their low-income homes, so their low-income housing. All of them were painted with a green door. So they always list them, as you can see, at $239. I've gotten more phone calls for these listings than any other properties ever, right? Because it looks like, wow, brick bungalow at $239,000. The first 3 sold at $310, $315, $325, and then in the peak they started going up to $475. Anything above $350, these are not good deals at all, because you can find something that has a lot more things done. Basically, it's just hype right now. So I just want to tell you guys that, because if you see these online, you know what's going to happen. They're going to go for $350, which the last like 6 have, and even just a little bit above. But this is also a perfect example for what you'll find for a secondary unit. So mostly brick bungalow. It's in New Sudbury on Briar Ave, so great area. You're looking between the 320 to 380 mark, depending on how finished it is. And then you're looking between, well, my clients have paid between 80 and 120 to add a legal secondary unit. So that'll be a completely brand new basement. And then, depending, you're refinancing around the 500, well, 485, one client, it was a little bit low, or if you're Alvin, 585 recently, which was crazy. So, how to create value in Sudbury. Here's a couple of my opinions, what's coming soon, because the burr, the light cosmetic, I know that's what everyone wants, but because everyone wants it, it's very hard to find. So they are out there, and the burr is still possible. It just takes a little bit longer now. It's just finding the right properties, but there's other ways that I think in the next little bit. So I kind of touched on this a second ago, the 3rd unit potential and our size of lots. So in Sudbury, we often have quite big lots. You can find some 60 by 140, 60 by 160 lots quite regularly. So I think in the near future, again, right now, not quite worth it to add a 3rd unit, but eventually down the line, if you have a cash flowing property currently, and then you have space to expand in the next 5, 6, 10 years, this is a good opportunity. There's also the Vernons Directory. I've been posting about this a little bit more recently. In Sudbury, the secondary unit and in-laws, legal versus not legal, doesn't make a huge difference. The city does not seek them out ever, although I will warn you, the last 2 months I've had 2 clients reach out saying that they don't know how it happened, but the city did find out. So for 6 years, it happened to me once. And then in the last 2 months, I've seen it twice. But adding value, you can add it by getting legal non-conforming, which means it's been 2 units for a long time, just none of the sellers have ever taken the time to prove it. So the city doesn't have a record of it. But this is one way that you can go tell. So if it's on the market, they have no proof, they don't have legal non-conforming, you can check the Vernons Directory. So I know it's blurry, but I'll give you just an idea. So you go to the library downtown, they give you the street name. So you pull out this film, like the old school film, you know, when it used to roll. And then you have to like scroll through it for different years. So you go to 1965 or earlier, and it gives you the street, and then it gives you the number of the houses that are on that street. So you look for that house number that you're looking to possibly purchase, and then if there's 2 phone numbers, it means there was 2 units. So if it's not necessarily on the MLS sheet, you can go here and say, okay, I can likely, it's not guaranteed, but I can likely figure out that this is 2 legal units, and it has been since before 1965, which means the city would grandfather it in, it'd give you a letter of legal non-conforming, then you have a legal secondary unit. So that's one way, or you can do that with 3 units, 4 units, 5 units, 6 units, like anything that you basically, that people don't have proof. Sometimes you can get that before closing if the seller is okay with you like applying for things on his behalf. So you can put that in your conditions as well. So, got you guys maybe a little bit hyped up about Sudbury, but right now, maybe in spring it'll be better, but right now, this is to show you in the last 30 days, duplex all the way to 12 plus units. We've only had 6 sales. So the inventory is extremely low. So as a realtor, right, there's not much to sell. I would love to send a ton of listings and have great deals out there. And there hasn't been, like none of these I was super excited about. Sometimes I get extremely excited about a property. I reach out to someone like Hani, you know, like, hey, you gotta buy this property. So these, they sold, not really great deals. A lot of them aren't even cash flowing, like Riverside, 5 unit, super low rents, went for $830,000, but it's because it was a solid building. They probably had to put 35% down. So you're not getting it with the lowest down payment. And then number of new listings, in 2023, there's only been 21 in the multifamily space. A lot of them overpriced, and a lot of them are kind of like this one. So here's, love the building, love the building. Another funny thing, the crater hit Sudbury, right? So this one has a rock in the basement. A lot of people that aren't from Sudbury are always surprised when I show them a property that has a rock in the basement. But you go down there, it's like, takes up half the basement, so you can't finish it. There's always a little bit of dampness, humidity, water running down it. Doesn't affect the structure, but it's there. So instead of blasting it out, they just built everything above ground, right? So here's an example of what we are seeing on market. And again, love the building, but with the interest rates, it just doesn't make sense. There's one vacant unit. It's a purpose-built fourplex, but the other 3 are, as you can see, 400 low, 400 low, 450 low in terms of rents. So yearly 4,200. And the seller's not willing to budge because he probably has a $100,000 mortgage at 2%, right? So he's cash flowing like crazy. So he's getting offers and he's just rejecting them because he's just gonna sit on it until he gets a good deal. So I'm not saying that to discourage you. I'm just saying that to let you know that it's few and far between the deals that you do find. So that's why jumping on the ones that are there is important. So that's all I have about Sudbury, general overview. Anyone have any questions? Sure. Well, we'll go. Doesn't matter.
You mentioned the size of the lots. Is it common to see severances happen?
Yes. Mostly around the suburbs, you can get 5-acre lots or plus, and those people sever a lot. In Sudbury, not very common, like in the city.
Okay.
Yeah, so finding, because you'd have to get at least 100 feet of frontage to sever 50. And dealing with our city, that's another thing, if you are, is tough, I'll be honest. I'd love to say it's easy, quick, you know, painless, but it is a little bit tougher dealing in Sudbury. Yeah.
Thank you.
No problem.
So just a quick question.
Yeah.
So, how do you see Sudbury as a market for a multi-family new builds? I mean, like 20, 25 plus units kind of new builds.
Not at all.
Sorry?
None.
But like, how would you see? The reason why I ask
Yeah.
this question is because when you build something, right, you probably want to command a little bit of a premium. So my point is, 850 bachelors, do you see like, if you build something new, brand new, multiple units, like a fancy condo-ish kind of thing, do you see value in a strategy like that?
Yeah, I do, but not super high end.
Okay.
So
yeah,
it's a good medium. So there's
Super high end, you know,
South End or expensive area of town. There's like my old elementary school got converted into very nice units. So those, for example, I said the max for one bedroom is 1,300, but those, for example, are huge, high ceilings, like almost this high, and those are going for 17 for a one bedroom. So they didn't make those super nice units. So there is a market. Yeah, exactly. I think there's an opportunity, again, down the line a little bit, if our population starts to increase at a faster rate for building and development, because we have like 4 or 5 big builders and that's about it. And none of them are really, they're building like these large for us, right? Expensive for us, like 850 plus for a brand new to $1 million plus. So for us, that's expensive for a brand new build.
And sorry, one more question.
Yeah.
Would you see more of repeat renters in that market? The reason why I asked this question is, technically, like some of the companies that you mentioned have stable jobs. Banks would love to lend them, right? So if I'm making $50,000, $60,000, why would I rent? And does it mean that the people that are renting a house like over there are probably not our client? Like, you know what I mean, right? Like it's sometimes like the audience who is planning to rent your property might not probably the best clientele because they want to stay in your property for the rest of your life.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. The higher end properties are often what we're seeing is like executives at the mines.
Mm-hmm.
So the renters, they're there for 3 years
Mm-hmm.
or 2 years, right? Like I have one staying in one of my Airbnbs right now, and he has a contract. So he's high up at Valet. He's there with his dog. He's only staying 2 years. So he found me on Airbnb. He's like, I'll rent it for 2 years. So you have a lot of those. Our hospital again, those are decent for Airbnb. I actually meant to have an Airbnb slide. So that's who you do get for Airbnbs is people coming in for the hospital, executives at the mine, our NOSM, Northern Ontario School of Medicine. So you can call them directly. Sometimes they rent something from you, whether there's a student in there or not. Yeah.
Sorry, so just south of Barrie, like going towards the stair, you know, the area that
Stair, yeah.
it used to be like, you know, farmland and like Valcarry and all that, you can pull down there, it's clearly being suburb of greater Sudbury. How is your feeling about the stair and places just south of Wanna River?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Is there's a lot of 3-season cottages there that were
Yeah.
like, you know, old, like, sort of a tracker cottage. If you
Yeah.
will. Actually, we call them camps in the north, but.
Yeah.
So show my Northern Ontario street cred. But those camps, I mean, is the opportunity there for Airbnbs or is that?
Oh yeah. There's a few people. There's some that have them just like on Long Lake, which to us isn't really.
I lived on Long Lake.
Yeah, exactly. So people have like Airbnbs there, and people go there for a vacation, and for us, it's like that's in the city technically, right? I do see a lot of opportunity there. Esther is quite popular. People like to live, again, like I said, in the outskirts. That's a little bit more expensive there. Nepwassi Lake Road kind of thing. So some people, they're like, hey, we want these 5-acre lots in these areas. Especially during COVID, that became really popular. They're like a little bit of land in Sudbury. You just take your snow machine, go wherever you want. You can go out for 6 hours right out your backyard. Yeah.
Maybe just a little favor here. Whenever you ask a question, just stand up so that project your voice because we don't have a second mic for questions. So awesome.
Can you talk a little bit about the vacant possession and some challenges in transitioning around compared to single family homes to maybe?
Yeah, for sure. It's hard to talk about it just because it's very difficult to get. Most things on market are being represented by their realtor, which if they're doing their job is saying, hey, no, we can't promise vacant possession. I know, especially in this harder market where some of these overpriced properties have been listed, I know 2 of them that have fallen through recently because they promised vacant possession, couldn't get them out. So even if you do get them to agree on the contract, there's still a risk that they aren't out on closing, so then it's 2 months of potentially having this deal that falls apart on the last day. I know a few people that have been successful with cash for keys, but that's also a risk. So you can't ask for it. Usually you do the digging ahead of time, so I ask them, because I've seen a few times it's their child that's living in the unit, right? A little bit easier that way. You can say, oh, can you find another apartment for your son or your daughter, or whatever it is. Yeah, no problem. Yep.
You talked about the hit that Sudbury took over the past year, right, in terms of pricing.
Yeah.
We've seen that in a lot of other overheated markets, like Frankfurt, for example. What are your, say, top two, three reasons to be really confident looking forward that this is the bottom or close to it in terms of pricing?
Yeah, so the numbers that I showed, our decrease followed exactly the monthly affordability. So we didn't have a further decrease where it was like a panic sell situation. So we followed interest rates exactly. So the reason I think it's the bottom is because they said maybe one more, or they might start decreasing them late this year or early next year. So if we are at the bottom of the increases, then we should be at the bottom of prices too. And again, I was saying at the start of my presentation as well, we've seen a little bit more people start to enter the market, kind of get a little bit excited. The 5-year fix dropped a tad, so they're thinking they're getting a good rate and they're a little bit excited, right? So first-time home buyers now, down payment's a big issue. $120,000 less, $5 grand, $6 grand less down payment. A few more people are jumping in.
Do you think that there are a lot of people that bought in Sudbury, either investors or locals, over the past 3 years, with interest rates being as low as they have, that are now in trouble with renewing their mortgages coming up, say, this quarter, next quarter, and they're not going to be tenable any longer?
So great question. Investors, I haven't had anyone reach out to me yet selling because they can't afford it. And single family homes, I haven't dealt with any offers, anyone on the selling side, buying side at all, of people defaulting on their mortgages yet. So there's still some people that haven't refinanced or that have their mortgages up for renew, right? So we'll see in the next couple of years. But so far, knock on wood, for them, for their sake, maybe not for the investor's sake, but everyone's pretty, I haven't seen one yet. No problem. Anything else? Yep.
I guess my question would be around like your garden suites, or you touched on it, and why do you think it's not worth it? Like at this point in the game to add that to a property, especially with property size, the legislation's there in the city, they kind of want you to do it, I would assume. Is it not, like is it still cheaper on a per unit basis to go out and buy another property? Or
Way cheaper, yeah.
yeah, so
That's
it's
kind of
just
why.
economics of it.
Yeah, although you would have a brand new
Yeah.
unit, but you're like the cost that we're throwing around that I've heard is like 180 to 250
Yeah.
to build that. If you already have the standing structure, I know 2 people that have put units in the garage.
Okay.
So if you have a standing structure, that could be an opportunity as well.
Yeah.
It just hasn't really picked up. And then your value after, you basically you're spending 250, you probably increase 250. So you're not generating that extra bit of
Yeah.
equity. Yeah.
I just noticed on Kathleen,
Stand up,
that
please.
is color.
Stand up, Tom.
Stand up.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
On the map, Kathleen was bordered with 2 colors and a break in the middle, and it was a little bit of black. So I'm assuming that wasn't accidental. So what is it about that little break of black with Kathleen specifically that makes that little section bad, if you will?
Just my Photoshop skills.
Yeah.
Yeah, not really. So Kathleen is the black part though.
It's a
Yeah.
north-south kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
North, that's very.
There's like 4 houses on Kathleen that are like decent,
Yeah.
like nice homes that are kind of part of the uptown, and then the rest is the lower income.
Thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, below Kathleen is your line if you're looking on the map of the uptown versus Donovan Carmel.